Hi guys, this is Frank with Tiny Plastic Spaceman, and in this video I'm going to show you everything you need to know to properly assemble Forge World resin model figures. So sit back and relax, or grab your tools and build along with us, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification icon so you can be told when new videos go online. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to put them in the comment section down below. So without further ado, let's get building. Hey guys, this is Frank with Tiny Plastic Spaceman, and in this video we're going to be showing you how to build Forge World resin Space Marine models. Now these are full resin models from Forge World, so there's nothing plastic in these at all. They're not modified plastic Horus Heresy Space Marines from the Calth or Prospero box sets. These happen to be the Apothecaries. What I've done is I've separated these out because it comes in a set of 2 Marines, and we've got a Mark II Marine complete set here and a Mark IV Marine here. And I was initially a little bit confused as to which arm went to where, and rather than spare you that, just going to show you this here. This is the Forge World website, and it shows the Apothecaries who've got the Mark II and the Mark IV. And so I've matched up got the shoulder pads and the left arm for the Mark IV on this one, and the backpack and the left arm on this sprue, and then the bit of rubble that he's standing on and there as well. And same thing for the well, it's slightly different loadout. I suppose if you're familiar with these, you would know exactly what without having to check the website. But I figured why not? Just be just be sure. So there we go. Now you'll notice that these do have a really small base. This is the old 25mm base, and I've got here from the Calth and Prospero sets, I've got the 32mm base. I believe these are 25mm. They seem really small. I suppose it's about 7mm, I guess. So I'm actually going to be putting them on these larger bases to match all the rest of my Horus Heresy models. So we're going to get rid of these and put them aside. And so just going to reset real quick, and I'll be showing you the tools that we'll be using. Okay, so first up we've got the clippers, and if you've seen any of my other assembly videos or my assembly tips or tool tips videos, you'll know that these are my favorite clippers. These are Zuron 410 micro shear side cutters, and they're really handy. They cut almost perfectly flat, especially on hard plastic. On resin, you do have to be a little bit more careful, but they're super handy. So I really like these clippers. For my hobby knife, I've got the Swan Morton scalpel blade holder with it's kind of a fresh scalpel blade, but it's good enough to cut the resin because it's quite soft. But you do want a sharp blade so you're not forcing anything and potentially cutting into your desk or your finger, even worse. We've also got the 3-sided cutter from Modelcraft. This is a really handy tool, and it often lets me skip going from a mold line remover to the knife, because this has quite sharp blades that you can kind of see there. They're not really blades, it's just sharp tool material that lets you cut away plastic, and you'll see how this works. And the final tool that I've got is this old toothbrush, which is actually what I use for cleaning my airbrushes. I use this for scraping away model resin fluff, like the leftover bits of resin that are like really light, and especially the ones that are in the crevices and stuff like that you can't get to with your fingers in the recesses of a model. Now for glues, in this particular case, I've got, if you've seen these before, this series of videos, you'll recognize this bottle. This is a really handy bottle. Gorilla Glue is not my usual glue, but this one just happens to be what I have available with me. This one you can use as a normal like glue application bottle, but it also very handily comes with this nice brush applicator, and you can see how thick and goopy the glue is there. And that is just because of the age of the glue. I've had this for several months, this particular bottle. It hasn't dried out, but the glue has gotten old, so it's gotten a bit thick, but that is perfect for assembling resin models, as it happens. And I've also got this glue, which is, I think this is the normal Gorilla Glue. It's not really thin, it's actually more of a medium glue. So if you're familiar with using lots of CA or cyanoacrylate or super glues, this is just basically it's a medium glue. It's a little bit thinner than what this is at the moment. And eventually, if this bottle lives for a while, it will get as thick as this glue. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. So we're just going to get straight to assembling, which means that we're going to get to clipping and getting rid of mold lines and casting gates and stuff like that. Now, we've already washed these. If you're not familiar with washing resin models, check out the video that's up here. It'll link you to, or one of the videos that'll drop down there will link you to how I wash resin model parts. Now, I like to wash my parts before I actually do the assembly, and that's purely because on some of these parts, like this, you have small parts that can easily get lost if you try to clip them off the sprues or the casting gates and try and wash them by hand. So what I did actually last night, so that I knew that these would be fully dry by the time I get around to assembling these, I gave them a wash and a scrub in warm soapy water, and that's basically it. And I actually used that same toothbrush that I just showed you. So we're going to start with the Mark II Marine first, Apothecary. We're going to start with this sprue, just because there's this base piece here, and we're just going to use our side cutters. And because this is a bit of rubble, I'm not too worried about what it's going to look like, so I'm just going to clip it right there. Normally, what you would do is what I'm going to do on this piece here and clip it away from the model. And notice how I turn this the opposite way so that I can make sure that there's plenty of sprue. Sorry about moving the camera. Plenty of sprue left off of the piece, so you can see off the shoulder there's a bit of sprue, and off the gun there's a bit of sprue. So I'm just going to, allows me the luxury of just taking a bit more time to so I don't have to maneuver around that casting gate. Now I'm cutting this one directly against the back of the arm because the arm's not going to be visible anywhere, so that one's fine. And then with this piece, I'm going to get my scraper and just hack away at that piece that's left over, and you end up with these, see the bits on my thumb? That's what I've just scraped off. And then we're just going to have a look at the rest of this piece and make sure that there's no really egregious mold lines. I haven't used egregious in a while. That's interesting that just popped out. There is a bubble right there. So what I'm going to do is get that blue super glue and just put a bit of glue over that. And what I'm doing here is I'm cross-hatching or putting lines in the back of the arm where it's going to be attached to the body. And the lines help me help the glue stick better to the body. Okay? And on this piece, there's nothing really crazy on this. I'm not sure which way it's meant to sit up. It's just a bit of debris, battlefield debris that the Apothecary is going to be standing on. So in order that I have enough time, or give the glue enough time to harden up on this piece here, because I'm filling the tiny little bubble with super glue. And it's easier to use, I mean, if you have a very thin applicator, you can use the really thin super glues, but in this case, the gel or the thicker super glue is a little bit better. So now I'm just going to use the clippers on the bottom of the feet. Again, I'm just going to cut directly to right up to the foot, because you're not going to see the bottom of the foot on the finished model. And by the way, because I've explained this in all the other model videos I've done, the casting gates that you hear me talking about are these. Basically, these are sprues that are glued onto the bottom of the master model. Okay, so those basically just allow the resin to flow into the model, because it's poured in from here and it flows down, and then the air flows back out, basically. Hopefully that makes sense. Make sure that you don't cut the peg off the bottom of the foot, because that's what the foot is going to rest in. But I am going to get the scraper and just scrape away, just so that this is level. And then when that's done, I'm going to look for vents, which are these things here, these little weird angle pieces. And I'm just going to use the scraper again just to knock those off. And the vents allow the air to flow out of the mold, so that you don't end up with very large bubbles inside on the surface of the model. So we're just going to give this a good look. We've got a little bit of a line there. The rest of the model seems really good. Little tiny bit of a mold line there on the robe. Robes are always, they seem like they're a bit tricky place to put a mold, but a mold line, or the seam, so that they can separate the finished cast out of the mold. But they're actually, if you have a sanding stick or a scraper or a sprue tool, they're actually really, really easy to get rid of. It's interesting he's got an empty holster. I wonder what the story is with that. Okay, so the rest of the model looks really good. So what I'm going to do is put those hash mark lines on the shoulders, on the backpack, on the nub where the backpack's going to be going, and on the other shoulder. And just for completeness sake, I'm going to also do it on the bottoms of the feet. Okay, so now first thing we're going to do is dry fit this piece and see how it fits in there. So that's what the model is going to be standing on the base. And whoops, while we're doing that, we're just going to go ahead and put a bit of glue on the bottom of the foot. And you can see which side it's supposed to go through, because the hole on this side is really small, but the hole on this side's bigger. So you don't have to drill it out or anything. You just conveniently just stick it right there. Now you can use any bit of bits that you have. You can use an orc head or whatever you want, or another separate Space Marine head if you want. I'm just gonna just stick with the normal, what's already made. I can just see, I'm not sure if the light is just catching it, I think. You can see there's a bit of a mold line there, so I'm just gonna gently scrape away with the tool just to get rid of that. And then just to make sure that there's no those bits that are left over, that resin fluff, I'm just going to use a toothbrush. You can use an old paintbrush to get rid of that stuff as well, just as long as you get rid of it. Because once you put the primer on, it's kind of like stuck in the model forever. So, right. So let's go ahead and put the arm in place. It's not a massive need to dry fit it because, you know, it's only the one arm. So just decide how you want him to be posed. And there you go. I'm not sure. I might break that off and face it up. I'm not sure. It kind of depends how the shoulder pads fit. I'm going to do the shoulder pads last. So now we've got the next arm and the backpack. So we're just going to clip them off the sprues. And there's lots of flashing on the backpack. The flashing is this thin stuff. And you see a lot, even on plastic kits, hard plastic kits. I mean, not so much with the Games Workshop stuff, but some brands just have old molds or whatever, and you just end up with flashing. So there seems to be a little bit of resin missing here, but I don't know, maybe that's I think it is just missing. There's a bit of a here, where exactly where the tip of that is, and on the corresponding other side there. I don't think it's going to be a major thing though. With regards to this model, there's a bit of, yeah, there's a big bit of flashing here. This is actually a little bit more of an issue. This piece that's sticking up. So I'm just going to scrape that down. The reason why it's an issue is because you've got this fin that comes along on the top of the backpack, and then the rivets that are on either side of the flashing. So you see how easy it is to get rid of that with the tool. And then we're going to get rid of the flashing that is threatening to mess up this exhaust vent. Okay, so we've got a bubble there. I might not worry about that, but the bigger issue is that there's this nasty hole that's on the side of, can you see that there? You can see it with the black behind the, see that hole, that big, it looks like something's taken a bite out of it. That's kind of annoying. We've also got some flashing between these, what are these? I'm pretty sure those aren't meant to be there. Flashing. I don't want to work on that while it's on the model, so I'm just going to get my scalpel blade. See if I can sort this out without too much hassle. Apologies for the light, but it's all I've got to work with. So I'm actually cutting quite a bit here. So I've got one side done. I'm working on the other side. Okay, so I've got the 2 holes. Now I'm just trying to make sure that there's a gap between these dropper bottles, or whatever they're called. I'm not really into medicine or anything. I'm going to leave that one because it seems quite solid. This one's just a bit more. Okay, so that's a little bit better. You can see that there's actually a gap there now. Okay, so that's better. This is not, I don't think this is normal. This is like many other parts that you'll see on other individual Forge World Space Marine models. So yeah. So now we're going to put those hash marks that we had on the arms and whatnot. We're going to do them on the corresponding places where that's going to go. So let's see here. So that's going to go on the back like that and just be held in place by about roughly a single drop of glue. Oh yeah, and on that piece I'm just going to put a bit of glue there and try and fill that gap with the glue. Actually, this is quite thin glue. So I'm just going to come in and rub it away with the foam, which I know is going to eat away at the foam, but it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to sop up that glue. So I'm going to come back with the really thick glue. Try and fill that. I don't think that's working very well. I might have to actually use a tiny bit, a ball of green stuff or something like that, which I don't have at the moment, so I'm just going to skip the repair of that vent piece. Okay, so trying to get this. There's actually not enough glue on there. Okay. Okay, so he's starting to come together. Almost the last piece is his left arm. So again, we're cutting the back, and we've got the top of the chainsword, which this particular sprue is quite thin, so you can kind of just pull it away. There is a bubble there on the chainsword, so we're going to put another drop of glue there. You just have a look. All the teeth are okay. Underside of the sword is fine. There's the merest hint of a mold line on the shoulder, on the elbow pad, and on the bottom where the hilt is on the sword, but that's all right. And then there's a bit of sprues just left on the back of there. Okay. Putting the hash marks, and then another drop of glue. Okay. And you see that 32 mil base gives it plenty of space to hold on to. Now at the moment, I'm not entirely sure whether I'm going to use these guys are going to be Alpha Legion, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to use Alpha Legion shoulder pads on both of these guys, or one of them, or none of them. But because this is resin models, and they can be glued on, they can also be snapped off, which is fine. So on the shoulder pads, I'm just going to check that on the Mark II guy, his symbol for his division or whatever it is, his specialty, is on his right shoulder, I should say, and it is. So we're going to just test the fit of it. It seems to fit okay there, and I seem to have it in the same general location as on the model, which seems to hinder his view quite a lot, but you know, he doesn't seem to be worried about it. So it's probably too much glue, but it'll be all right. Now you'll notice I didn't do any scoring on the pieces, and that's just because I may very well be replacing them anyway. This one is a little bit different because I can, well, I'm not going to be replacing the one on the right. So because it has his the medic badge on there, but this one don't know yet, so I'm just gonna leave that one there. And then I've already scored the bottom of this foot a bit, and that piece has come off, of course. Oh, because it's not, the glue didn't actually touch anything. Let's try that again. Actually having the glue attach. Okay, so there he is. He's completed and ready to glue onto the base. However, I did notice that his syringe thing, you can tell I'm not a doctor, does have a bit of flashing I need to get rid of, and there you go. So now we're ready to put some glue on the bottom of his feet. Not a huge amount, but you know, just a little bit. And there we are. So we'll let him dry and we'll move on to the Mark IV. So same thing, a little bit quicker maybe this time. Again, just cutting straight down the bottom of the feet, but keep in mind that this has a peg on it. And there's lots of vents and stuff on this. So actually, what I'm going to do, this is quite a thick casting gate, so I'm going to cut this one away from the model by flipping the cutters, and then cut. There we go. And then, let's see here, just using the scraper to get at the rest of the sprue that's left over. On this one, I'll show you how to take care of largish bits of sprue. Basically, you just come at an angle and you just cut bits of it away at a slowly, one bit at a time, and there you go. It's mostly gone. And just finished taking care of that robe. Okay, and now we're just going to inspect the rest of the model just to make sure that there's no bad mold lines or anything. Looks alright, so we're going to just score up that nub for the backpack and where the arms are going to be going. Okay, and then we've got this arm already came off just in transit, so there was a big glob of resin that was on the shoulder. We're taking care of that and just having a look at the rest of this piece, and it is fine. And then we're going to cut the lines in place. I need to put the lines on the bottoms of the feet so I can dry fit, always dry fit. And that looks about right. Oh, no, not on that one yet. Okay. All right, and now this is his left arm. It's a bit humorous that the Apothecary has a chain sword. I suppose it's for battlefield amputations or whatever. So carrying on with the rest of this sprue, we're going to just get the backpack off. Slight tidy up. And just clean the tops of these things there. Got a little bit of a mold line there. Always an issue on these backpacks, it seems. We do have a bubble here. So again, just going to put a little bit of a covering. And then just where it's away from the bubble, just going to wipe it away with our finger, and then scratch up the backpack, get some glue on, with the backpacks you're meant to really, you should be dry fitting it, but I thought there'd be no issues. Looks like this, there's a bit of, you can see where there's a bit of clearance issue there, as in this angle on the unseen side of the backpack is preventing it from sitting flush against the back. So I'm just scraping that away and hoping I'm not ruining anything. Seems to be better. I'm actually going to take it off of here now. Seems better. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to let that sort of tack into place as it just dries. The surface of it starts to dry. It doesn't want to. So we'll just let it rest on its back then. Doesn't want to do that either, so just rest a bit. Just something to keep it in place while we tackle these pieces. Now here we're cutting these, because these are quite thin around the edges of these shoulder pads, we're cutting well away from the actual model piece. So you can see that there's, oops, just keep dropping it. So you see there's plenty of sprue left on there, and just gonna gently cut that away. There we go. And again, whoop. Don't take too big of a bite because you might end up damaging the model piece. And there we are. Down here, looks like there was actually a bubble that had just almost made it past that vent. So we're just going to put a little bit of a dab. And then check the rest of the piece. Okay. So we're just going to flatten this a little bit and then put some lines in it again. We're actually going to put the lines on the arm as well. It's probably better to actually put the shoulder pads on first. So I'm going to get the other arm ready and make sure some of that goes up inside, on the inside of the bit there. So I think we're about there. So I'm going to put the glue on the feet. And again, back to the 32 mil base. So there's plenty of space to work with. And there we are. So, I hope that wasn't too laborious. I know it's a bit longer video than I thought it would end up being, but you know, you have to work with what you got. So there we are. Hopefully you found that helpful. There's the two models, complete and ready to use. Well, obviously I'm going to get them painted, base them, and then paint them. But there you are. Apothecaries from Forge World, ready to go. So again, this has been Frank with Tiny Plastic Spaceman. I hope you enjoyed that, found it informative. If you did, do give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and check us out on all the various social media streams. You can see the links on the page there. And check us out Facebook especially. Give us a like, please. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If I missed anything, I may have. If I goofed anything up, I probably did. But I'd like to hear your feedback. Let me know what you think. And so that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.